up guys? So today we're going to talk about movement, and before we get into this vlog it's worth mentioning that I actually shot this yesterday using my radio mics when it was amazing sunny golden hour with a couple of friends, where this view kind of looked honestly amazing. Today we're gonna and the sound was fucking terrible. Completely handheld, and having a handheld shot, so I had to do it all again. And now there's no sun, there's no friends, and there's only me and the clouds. So after that depressing intro, let's get into it. I'm actually in the lovely Budapest right now. As you can see behind me, it's honestly one of my favorite cities that I've been to. I've only been here like 2 or 3 days, but it's like a whole another London, just like in the middle of Eastern Europe. Like we were here yesterday and the day before just exploring when the sun was out, and yeah, it's so awesome. Like the huge river, amazing buildings, it's dope. But for now, as I said, we're going to talk about movement, and this is something so important that you really honestly need to learn if you're going to make travel videos that are kind of that cut above. So what do I mean by this? Movement is something you need to have in the back of your mind and always be paying attention to. And there's two types of movement. There's movement of the camera, there's movement how you move the camera, and there's movement within the camera. There's stuff that's moving in the shot. And if you look at any travel video that you really like, any awesome travel video that's inspired you, that's emotionally connected with you, I can almost guarantee that there'll be the filmmaker behind that would have paid attention to movement. So with that being said, let's break this down. And the first type of movement I'm going to talk about is a movement within the shot. I'm definitely going to check out if Rapunzel's in there later, yeah? So when I talk about movement within the shot, I'm usually speaking of when the camera is locked off on a tripod, and obviously there's stuff moving or moving through the shot. And it's something you really want to pay attention to when shooting landscapes. Is anything that's moving through? Are there any cars moving through? Any trains moving through? Any birds flying overhead through the shot, moving towards or side to side within the shot? And the first thing this will affect is your framing. So if there's a train moving through the shot, I want to pay attention to how that bit of movement impacts the shot, you know? Is it moving away from the shot, and is it kind of going through right into the distance? Is it moving completely horizontal to the shot? And this is going to impact the framing of my shot, because if you look at the rule of thirds, this really links to what's moving in the shot. You want those corners in the rule of thirds, as I've talked about before in other videos, to match up to things in the shot. And the things that you want to pay attention to in the shot are usually going to be those things that are moving. So is that train moving towards one of the points of interest, one of the points, the rules of third in the shot? And this is going to really, it's kind of like advanced composition that's really going to impact your shots. So that's the first thing you need to pay attention to. The second thing is transitioning between shots. So if there's a bird flying overhead in one of the shots that I've noticed, then in my next shot this will impact how I set it up, because I want to get a bird in my next shot doing almost the same thing. Because when I cut between those two shots, it'll almost be like the bird kind of flies through one and flies out of the other. Even if it doesn't make sense in that space, logically, that fluidity of movement adds such an amazing level of detail to your shots and therefore to your video as a whole, that's really going to make it like next level. So onto the second type of movement. This is going to be the movement of your camera. In every travel video I've seen that I really love, there's usually a ton of movement of the camera. Whether it's a drone getting that epic shot flying ahead, or a kind of a steadily moving forward, stabilized shot, or even something simple like a handheld shot. Any type of movement of the camera really gets people engaged. And I take this very seriously, because if you think back in the bigger picture, what's the point of making a video in the first place? It's to engage with people, it's to connect with people, it's to get people's emotions firing. I mean, that's what makes an amazing video. If you think back to a time that you've seen an amazing video, I bet your emotions were firing in some sort of excitement or fear, anger, or inspiration, or happiness, motivation even. But your emotions were firing. And that's what you want to do to your audience. That's what a great video evokes in people, it's emotion and connection. So, having movement of the camera puts people in the video more. And what better thing to evoke emotion within people than make them feel like they're there, right? So if you can make people feel like they're there, it's going to connect with them much more. And if you think about people's perceptions, it's never completely locked off and still like a tripod. Even if I try and freeze right now, there's always going to be subtle movement. And that's an amazing way to captivate people and bring them into the video more, is having those movement shots where it looks like you're walking forward or moving side to side. Any sort of movement that kind of mirrors how people would perceive things. So for example, moving out from something is how people see things. They walk around a corner, then they see this amazing view, right? You want to kind of mimic people's movements. It puts them in the shot and it really gets them connecting with your video, gets their emotions firing and remembering you. So those are the basic two types of movement. Now we're going to talk about combining those two things together, the movement of the shot and the movement within the shot, to get those shots that are just a cut above the rest. Hey guys, so to wrap this all up and talk about the final type of shot, I need to refer to a concept that I refer to in a lot of my other videos called capturing moments. And when capturing both types of movement, when tying them both together, you need to think about the scene as a whole. You need to kind of play the role of the observer and think about what's going on in the scene. As I talked about before, what's moving through the scene, watch it. Then you can think, okay, is there a train moving through the scene kind of away from me? How am I going to move my shot to reflect this movement of the train, and how does it affect the composition overall? You know, is the train moving into a point of interest in the rule of thirds, and can I kind of move my camera so it does that? When you start thinking at this level, then that's when you make the shots that are just so much more rich, and it's kind of the difference, I believe, between somebody who hasn't put much thought into their video and a video that looks amateur and a video that looks really pro, and you can't really work out why. Well, movement is a huge factor in that. So if you got anything out of this video, I'd really appreciate if you liked, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment below as always. Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know how you can apply this technique to your own films, if you have done before, or if you're not doing it already, you know, how could you apply it? Anyway, I hope you really enjoyed the video. Speak soon, and as always, keep filming. Bye bye.